That was a scary moment. Somebody took my homily. That's scary for you, though, not for me, really. Because, see, the thing is, people ask me, do you have notes or anything? And I say, yeah, I have lots of notes. And the reason is because I really like what I'm saying, and I could keep going on and on and on. And that's not good for you guys, see? So if I stick to my notes, at least I'm going to keep, things in a reasonable period of time. So thank you, whoever. Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate that. There was a story a number of years ago that was carried in both newspapers and Time magazine. It was about a woman by the name of Mary Frances Housley. They called her Frankie Housley. She was the lone stewardess on National Airlines Flight 83, which crashed after landing at Philadelphia Airport in January of 1951. Frankie Housley had made 10 trips into that burning plane to help passengers get out. As soon as she had finished getting those passengers to safety, Housley also started to jump from the plane. But just before she made her escape, a passenger on the ground screamed, "My baby, my baby!" Flight attendant Mary Housley turned back into the plane to find the baby. And that was the last time anyone saw Frankie Housley, 25 years old, alive. She died in the attempt to save the baby, and rescue workers found her charred body holding that 4-month-old baby in her arms. The story of her courage made national headlines, including an item in Time magazine. One passenger called her a real heroine. A congressman labeled her the bravest American in history. And so once again this week, in our gospel, like last week, we hear Jesus trying to prepare his disciples for the sufferings that he would soon endure. And we see the stark contrast between Jesus and his disciples. Jesus is seriously talking about his passion and death. And what are his disciples talking about? They were preoccupied with which one of them was the greatest. They just didn't understand what Jesus was trying to tell them. And so St. Mark even tells us they were afraid to question him. So it's obvious that Jesus had a lot of big egos in his group. And like St. James said in our second reading, they were jealous. And so he says, where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder and every foul practice. So with that attitude, they would not make very good disciples. So he had to have a little talk with them. And so the gospel says, then he sat down, called the 12, and said to them, if anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all and the servant of all. So try to imagine seeing their faces while Jesus was telling his apostles this. He sees this puzzled look on their faces. And so he takes the next step to demonstrate exactly what he means. Taking a small child, he placed it in their midst, and putting his arms around it, he said to them, whoever receives one child such as this in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but the one who sent me. You see, in that society, children were greatly loved, and they were seen as a blessing. And the more children, the more blessed. But children had no social status. They depended totally on the goodwill of their elders. So by using this example, Jesus is saying that if we really want to be the best in the eyes of God, then we need to reach out in service to our brothers and sisters who are dependent or needy in some way, like a child. And all of us are needy in some way at some time, whether we are willing to admit it or not. So the best way for us to put this attitude of service to others that Jesus is talking about is to think of ourselves less. This is the type of attitude that will help us be more sensitive to the needs of others. Now, I hope that all of us could react with the same heroism that Frankie Housley displayed in saving those lives from the plane wreck. But that is not a reflection of what daily life looks like for most of us. So how can this attitude of service play out in our lives more readily? You know, there are many answers to that question, as many as there are people to answer it. However, greatness in Jesus' view is found in our willingness to accept, to welcome, and to serve with love those who are considered unacceptable and undeserving for any reason. We must welcome people the loving way a child welcomes them before he is taught discrimination. If we are to be truly great, we must be ready to accept 4 challenges. Are you ready? Number 1, put ourselves last. Number 2, be the servant of all. Number 3, receive the most insignificant human beings with love. Number 4, expect nothing in return. Put ourselves last, be the servant of all, receive the most insignificant human beings with love, and expect nothing in return. We need to ask the Holy Spirit to help us to become truly great through loving, humble, and selfless service. Start with something as simple as to be an expression of God's kindness and humble service in your appearance. So what do I mean by that? Well, when you see people throughout your day, does your face show kindness so as to welcome a person? Or does it say, I want to avoid you? Do your eyes show kindness so as to light up when you see this person? Or do they look away as if to say, I don't want to get involved with you? Does your mouth show kindness with a smile that shows joy at the sight of a person? Or is your stone face enough to turn a buffalo away? Does your greeting show kindness in its warm, friendly attitude? Or does it say, I can't be bothered with you? You know, an attitude of service can begin in very simple, heartfelt ways if we are willing to accept the challenge to put forth just a little bit of effort. Albert Schweitzer said, "I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I know, the only ones among you who will really be happy are those who sought and found how to serve." May all of us be the ones who sought and found how to serve.